In this video, we're going to talk about how to factor completely. So sometimes you end up with a factored polynomial that's actually not fully factored. So we're going to go over some steps that will ensure that every single time you factor, you're factoring something completely. So the first thing you're always going to do is you're always going to look for a GCF. That will ensure that you're factoring the remaining thing, and you're not going to have a GCF that gets in the way. So if I'm looking here at all three of these terms, what do all three have in common? Well, they're not all divisible by 2, because 6 is divisible by 2, but 9 and 15 are not. They are, however, all divisible by 3, right? They're divisible by 3, 6 is divisible by 3, 9 is, and so is 15. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to pull out a GCF of 3, okay? When I do that, I have a leftover polynomial, or a LOP, a leftover polynomial, of 2a squared minus 9 divided by 3 is 3, 3a minus 5. So now that is what I'm going to want to factor. So this guy is what I'm going to want to factor. We'll come back to the GCF of 3 at the very end. All right, so this is a quadratic that has an a that is greater than 1. So I'm going to use the AC method. AC method multiplies a times c, so 2 times 5, which is 10. And then we find the factors of 10, which are 1 and 10 and 2 and 5. We need to figure out how to get my linear term. In this case, my linear term is negative 3a. How to get negative 3a is negative 5a plus 2a. If you said 2a minus 5a, you would be correct. Your work will look a little different than mine, but you'll get the same answer in the end. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to replace that negative 3a with negative 5a plus 2a. So I've got 2a squared minus 5a plus 2a minus 5. And then I'm going to factor by grouping here. So I'm going to group my first 2 and my last 2 together to factor by grouping. If I'm looking at my first 2, what do my first 2 have in common? 2 and 5 have nothing in common, but they do have an a in both terms. So we're going to pull out an a, and we have left 2a minus 5. Okay, what do 2a and negative 5 have in common? Nothing. So it's just 2a minus 5. What really is that number there, though? That's a 1. Okay, so they share a common binomial now of 2a minus 5. And what's left over is a plus 1. So this is our factored leftover polynomial, or our FLOP. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to take our FLOP and our GCF, and we're going to stick them together. So 3 times 2a minus 5 times a plus 1 is my final answer. So I stick my GCF out front, my first GCF, and then I put my factored polynomial behind it. So that's how you factor completely. First, find your GCF, then factor whatever you have left over.